we're in the box, and that's what she said, we need to be in the box.
In the box. We're in the box.
We in the box.
And to let me pull up your channel
Hmm.
and see who get my stream up here.
Hmm. There
So
we
I can
go.
make sure. All right. All right. We are back. And Electra, do you
Hmm.
want to get us started talking about what we're doing?
Oh yes, I can. Today we just coming on because on last night we had Moretta who talked in depth about her experience with COVID-19, the side effects of it, how it impacted not only her but those around her that she loved, and she was really drove the point of taking this to a higher level of importance than what many people have viewed it as being. Even though we had a lot of people who knew that this thing was real, that there are those who still are out there who don't believe that it's real. So today, after me and you had a conversation, we came to that realization that after me receiving phone calls and responses from it, we needed to just talk a little bit more about it with someone who had the same experience, but with the reverse of the diagnosis. So you experienced that and you had the reverse effect of it. So just a kind of an
Yeah.
extension to what
Yeah.
was shared on
To what was
last
said.
night.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can take
What
it from here.
Okay, okay. What Miranda talked about her experience of going to the emergency room with COVID. And she went a couple of times. She went the first time and they tested her and said, "You don't have it." Then when she went back, by the time she went back, she couldn't even breathe.
Hmm.
And so she went back again, and this time it was positive. And she talked about her experience of being there all by herself, nobody with her, whatever. What I want to talk about is my experience of going into a hospital not having COVID, having had something else. I sliced my finger open. I was trying to share a video of my sliced open finger, but it messed up. So, but yes, I sliced my finger open because the disease that I have affects my muscles. And sometimes I just drop things unexpectedly. And I dropped a very sharp knife and sliced my finger down to the bone. Okay. So I go into the emergent and the hospital is the closest emergency room to us. There are no what they call doc in a box, just
Hmm.
in little emergency centers any
Uh-huh.
closer.
Uh-huh.
So my sister took me to the hospital. She couldn't come in. She dropped me off and went home because
Hmm.
we didn't know how long I was going to be there. I walked in, they took my temperature immediately and had me put on one of their masks instead of the mask I came in with, which
Hmm.
was fine. And all along the floor, there are little foot marks that say, "Please stand here." And
Hmm.
they're 6 feet apart.
Oh, okay.
And I was the third person in line to get to the window where you check in, and understand that all this time I have this finger wrapped in this huge bunch of gauze, and
Hmm.
blood is starting to seep through it. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm standing there like this, holding it up because I know, you're supposed to hold it up above your heart and above your head. So
Hmm.
I'm standing there in the line like this. And the people behind me who came in after me are not respecting that 6 foot line, that mark.
Hmm. Hmm.
They're right, they've come up right behind me. And I'm nervous. I'm
Right.
nervous because I'm like, you know, and you can look around the waiting room and you
Hmm.
can see that there are very few chairs in the waiting room.
Hmm.
They are spaced. They've got these yellow X's on the floor, and there's
Uh-huh.
a chair over each yellow X.
Uh-huh.
And you can tell they've measured it so that they're minimum 6 feet apart,
Uh-huh.
every chair.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And you can look around and you can see, okay, eh, nobody else is sitting here with a bloody head or a bloody finger.
Uh-huh.
So it makes me think immediately everybody else in this waiting room is here because of COVID, right?
Right.
So so I get up to the window. I finally get up to the window, and I'm all ready. I'm prepared. I have my driver's license and my ID and
Mhm.
my insurance card.
Mhm.
And I give it to the lady, and she says, "Oh, you really should have gone to a local emergency center." And
Mhm.
I said, "You're the closest to my house." I said, "I just live 5 blocks from here." And
Mhm.
she says, "Yeah, we are the only one near here." And she
Mhm.
said, "But understand that we may have to just do a temporary fix on your finger and send you someplace else because we are slammed with COVID patients."
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, whatever, whatever
Mm.
you tell." But I was scared. I
Yes.
was like, "I don't want to catch this disease because I have a lot of other diseases already. I don't need a new one."
Yes.
So then they sent me to go sit in the waiting room, and I sat in one of the chairs that were distanced, far apart. Um, but people kept getting up from their chairs and walking around,
Mhm.
instead of just sitting still in their chair. And every time someone would come around me, I would do this. I mean, you know,
Yes.
and but I only sat out there. Fortunately, the lady behind the desk saw the blood starting to come through my bandage.
Uh
And I
huh.
only sat in that waiting room for like 5 minutes.
Okay.
And what the emergency room was doing, they were pulling people back into the area where the window was here where you checked in. And so
Mhm.
they were pulling people back into the room behind the check in and doing their triage in there.
Oh, okay.
So they had me, so you could see what was going on in the waiting room. And so they pulled me back and they just had me sit in the chair, and they hadn't looked at my finger yet at this point. They just saw that it was all bandaged. And the nurse reiterated again that they may have to just send me to someplace else. And then there was the doctor who was in charge of the emergency room was in there. She goes, "Well, just let me look at it real quick." And so I took the bandage off, and she goes, "Oh no, I see bone. We
Oh.
can't send you away.
Uh huh.
I see bone." She said, and so the nurse started to say, "Okay, well, go ahead and go back out to the waiting room." And the doctor said, "Absolutely not." She said, "I do not want her with this open wound
Mhm.
out there with COVID patients."
Right.
And that it made me feel better, but at the same time, it was like all of a sudden it became very real.
Okay.
You know, the doctor is saying, "Don't go back out there. Don't
Mhm.
let her go back out there
Mhm.
because everybody else out there is here because they're having respiratory problems and stuff."
Mhm.
And I had already come in with my walkers. They already knew,
Uh huh.
that I'm a little bit not quite healthy. And so the doctor says, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you back to our non COVID emergency room suite. There's no doctor back there. We don't have anybody available.
Mhm.
So you may be sitting back there for hours before we have anybody available to come."
Mhm.
So they took me back there, and you could see across the hall this
Mhm.
other like emergency bay where there were beds like everywhere,
Uh huh.
gurneys with people on them everywhere, out in the little hallway, around the nurses station, just packed. And then on the other side was the non-COVID side. There's one other person in there. The place was
Okay.
empty.
Hmm.
And I really thought I was going to be sitting in there for hours and they were going to forget I was there because they were going to be so busy.
Mhm.
But the truth is that about 5 minutes later, another doctor came in and said, "I understand there's a finger in here.
Mhm.
Where's my finger?" I knew that was me. So
Yes.
I said, "I'm here." And so she said, "Okay, we need to get you out of here. You need to not be in this hospital." So that was the shortest trip I've ever spent to the emergency room.
Uh-huh.
So she gave me a shot in my finger. She stitched it up. She gave me a shot. Portable X-ray people came to see if there were any bone chips,
Uh-huh.
and there weren't. I didn't chip the bone. I just got reached the bone.
Uh-huh.
They stitched it up, and then they says, "Okay, I'm going to walk you out a different way." They
Yes.
walked me out through the physician only entrance,
Mhm.
keep me from going back through that waiting room.
Mm.
And I just wanted to share that experience as sort of a um, so people would understand how a non-COVID person,
Mhm.
how it affects them. And these
Mhm.
poor people were still sitting. I mean, there must have been 30 of them in the waiting
Mhm.
room, and they were still in the waiting room.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
that's why. when I began to receive text, and then you also received some responses from Moretta's
Oh,
interview,
I did.
and right, some the thing of it is that
Yeah.
I realized, you know what, this subject needs to be discussed more. We don't talk about it
It,
enough,
we don't talk about it.
and it's like people
We see
are.
people talking about it on the news, but we don't talk about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. That's
And
it.
it is affecting us.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Everyday
even,
people.
and, mhm. And I'm going to tell you about another experience that this happened in October. But the slicing my finger open was in July the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about why I remember July the 9th so well another time. But in
Mm-hmm.
October, I started running a fever.
Uh-huh.
It didn't start with a fever. It actually started with a headache. I started, and I often get headaches,
Uh-huh.
but I don't get them this bad. It was the worst headache I'd ever had in my life.
Mm.
And after 2 days, I had a fever of 102.
Okay.
And it just so happened to be my doctor's office was moving. Of all the time in the world to not be available, they were moving offices and would be closed on the Friday and the Monday. They were moving from Friday to Monday over the weekend. I did not, because of my experience of going into the emergency room
Mm-hmm.
with my finger, I did not want to go back into the emergency room for this
Mm.
102 fever, although I know I should have,
Yes.
because of all my other health issues. But I didn't. So I stayed at home, and I tried to take it. I took a leave and all this, all the everything I could think of to reduce the fever.
Mm-hmm.
The fever didn't go away, and I
Mm.
finally was able to get in touch with my doctor's office. Uh, anyway, so on Sunday,
All
I
right.
said I'm going to go ahead. I was still running a fever. I still had 102 fever on Sunday, but my sister took me to get a COVID test.
Okay. Hmm.
And my test, even though I didn't go into any place, I sat in the car and they passed the stuff and up my nose and whatnot. And by the time I got a hold of my doctor's office, which was on Wednesday. The fever had broken, but I was still having severe body aches and pains,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not able to eat, you know, stuff like that. And I still had the headaches so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but on Wednesday, the day I was finally able to get a hold of the doctor's office, I also got my results from my
Mm.
COVID test, and it came back negative.
Good.
And I did a phone conference with my doctor, and I told him, what my symptoms were and how I felt. And he said, "Oh, I'm pretty sure that was a false negative because I'm pretty sure
Mm-hmm.
you have COVID." And
Yes.
I was like, "No, I don't. I don't have it. Not me. No, no." I said, and I told him, I said, "I'm not going to the emergency room."
Mm-hmm.
I said, I have been trying to call y'all ever since Friday, because but every time I get to somebody different, because your office was closed, they tell me to go to the emergency room, and I'm not doing it
Yeah.
because I was afraid. I
Yeah.
had this fear because what I saw of the COVID patients when I was in the emergency room. So
Mm-hmm.
he took me, so he told me, he says, I believe that you do have COVID, even though your test came back negative. He
Mm-hmm.
says, but I'm going to go ahead and give you some antibiotics, and I'm going to go ahead and give you some pain medication
Oh.
for the headache.
Oh.
So he did. He called in prescription for antibiotics, and he called in prescription for the pain medication.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I never developed a cough. So I am certain, I don't think that I had COVID.
Okay.
I have Crohn's disease, which is an inflammatory bowel disease. I believe that the stress
Mm-hmm.
of being in isolation and quarantine and the whole pandemic issue had just piled up on me, and I was having a Crohn's disease
Mm-hmm.
episode
Okay.
and had gotten a little infection,
Yes.
because over the next 4 days, uh, my body eliminated a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And by the time that was all over, then I felt better and I didn't have a headache anymore.
Mm.
And the number one reason I'm pretty sure it wasn't COVID myself is
Mm-hmm.
because my sister, who was having to take care of me, didn't catch it.
Oh, okay.
And we live in this house together. we're together all the time, 24, we're isolating together.
Mhm.
So she didn't catch it.
Okay.
I never lost sense of taste. I never had
Okay.
any congestion in my lungs.
Mhm.
So I also haven't taken an antibody test. When I go into the doctor, he's probably going to ask me to go do that
Yes.
the next time I go visit him. But so here we have the other side of the spectrum,
Mhm.
that I wouldn't go into the doctor because I wasn't having trouble breathing. If I had been like Moretta and I had started trouble breathing, then I would have believed it was COVID. But I
Mhm.
didn't think it was COVID. I didn't think
Mm.
I had it.
Oh, okay.
So I did not go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we definitely, as Electra and I talked about earlier, I have some friends that are doctors and nurses. And so we'd like to hear from our local standpoint, our local doctors and nurses,
Yes.
and hear how their experiences have been.
Mhm.
That was my experience.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know anybody else personally who has gone to the emergency room for COVID.
Mhm.
So, and I probably do know people, but I haven't been seeing them because I have been isolating since first week in March.
Yes. Okay.
I haven't, yeah, I order my groceries online and we go pick them up, but we don't get out of the car.
Mhm.
I do drive through at the pharmacy with masks, and
Mhm.
we don't, we are isolated, just my
Yes.
sister, and not as bad as some people who are by themselves, like
Yes.
you, Miss Electra's by herself, because I am here with my sister. So I
Yeah.
do have company. Um, and I have actually, for the first time in my life, been so busy on Zoom.
Mhm.
I talk to people every day on Zoom because it got to the point where you just weren't seeing people's faces and you wanted to see a face.
Yes.
And so we've started having Zoom gatherings with a lot of different groups and stuff. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I don't know about you, Electra, but if anybody's watching, we would
Mhm.
really like some feedback on how this came through. If it,
Yes.
if we, uh, if you were able to hear us, if you were able to make any comments. We don't have any comments, so I'm betting nobody's watching.
Yeah. No
So that's
comments.
okay. And that's okay.
Mhm.
And that is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's okay. And Jackie, I've been
Yeah.
tested 7 times. Because
7
I've
times.
had the antibody
Wow.
test, and I've had the nose
Mhm.
swabs. I've just had
Mhm.
the fear of just catching
Mhm.
this thing. Uh,
Oh yeah.
is real. It's really
It
real.
is real.
And I,
And
I
yeah.
I've heard people say, man, I'm most afraid of getting COVID than anything because we keep
Mhm.
seeing the numbers increasing. And that's the importance of what we were talking about earlier. The doctors and the doctors and the nurses that you know, of getting them
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
so that they can
Mhm.
educate us. And that's the thing about this podcast. This is an information podcast. When you come on
Mhm.
here, people are giving out information, something that can help the lives of someone else. It's
Mhm.
one of
Mhm.
those type of podcasts, and I feel like
Mhm.
it's so important because so very often us as everyday people, we don't get a chance to
Right.
talk about what we're doing, what our experiences are, and we are passionate about what we're going through. But when you have to
Mhm.
keep that
Mhm.
bottled up inside, and the only time
No.
it becomes important is when somebody that has some money, or they have some kind of celebrity status.
Mhm.
That's when it
Mhm.
becomes important. But us as everyday individuals, we need an outlet too. That and that is one of the things when I was asking God to show me what is it that you want me to do. And that was the one thing, the major thing that kept coming to mind and being laid on my heart. Give the people something where they have
Mhm.
a platform to share
Mhm.
their information.
Mhm.
And you're going to
Mhm.
be on next week and next Wednesday night.
Yes, yes.
And
Uh,
that's,
uh,
I can't wait for
Not
that.
talking about COVID, maybe about maybe it will come up, but I don't. not particularly talking about COVID.
Right.
We're going to talk about personal choices and
Yes. Yes.
believing in ourselves.
Yes.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Yes. So.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess that I don't really have anything else to say, but I guess it works. I
Yes.
guess the video stream works. So,
Yes.
um, we're going to say goodbye and good night, and we will see you all this next Wednesday night
Yes.
at 6 o'clock.
But Jackie, before we get
Okay.
off, we need to let them
Bye,
know.
everybody. Yes.
We need to let them
Yes.
know that we're going to be doing some
Okay.
testing periodically leading up, because
Yes.
we don't want that to
Throughout the
happen
week.
to us. What happened yesterday,
Right.
last night? Okay.
Or even today. We had a
Yes.
little bit of a problem today because I was trying to, I wanted to share a picture of my finger so you would all know that I really did. This is a real event. It really did happen. I didn't make it up. I cut my finger. I had to go to the emergency room.
Yes.
But we failed in getting that to happen. I don't know why, but what I might do, if I have something that I want to have a video of or I want to show pictures of, what I might do, Electra, is send it to you ahead of time.
Okay. Okay.
And then you don't have to give me permission to share. You just share it
Okay.
from
Okay.
your end. And that way we don't have to do all this messing around and stuff.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we'll be back on probably 2 or 3 more times before next Wednesday
Yes.
doing tests. So if there's something you want us to talk about,
Yes.
let us know.
Yes.
Just let us know and we'll talk.
Okay.
Because Electra and I, we have no trouble talking.
None.
All right. All right.
Good
I'll
night,
see y'all. Good night, everybody. Bye.